All right, guys. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry for the tardiness. It's my fault. I have too many identities. I'm Alice from the Imagination Foundation. You're like the admin. Okay. And are you guys getting an echo? Are you getting a crazy echo?
Little echo.
No. How about now? I think we solved it. Okay, let's start over. Guys, hi. I'm sorry for the tardiness.
We can hear you.
Gotta close another window.
I'm Alice. Okay. Let's close this. Okay. Hello? The recursive loop is over. We are starting over for a second time. Hi, I'm Alice from the Imagination Foundation. I have some incredibly patient and passionate guests with us today to talk about Genius Hour. And for those of you who don't know what Genius Hour is, it's basically something that's rooted in Google 20% time, and maybe 3M's 15% time, and maybe Daniel Pink's Drive, and maybe Angela Meyer's passion-driven classroom. There's a lot of different roots, but basically it gives kids a chance to pursue their passions and construct projects around their passions about an hour a week or even more. I'm sure I'm not doing justice to what Genius Hour is all about, but that's why we're here, because we're going to talk to the people that actually practice it in their classrooms. Can we go around and just quickly introduce ourselves? I know, Gallit, do you want to introduce yourself first, and then, I don't know,
Sure.
jump in.
I'm Gallit, and I am up in Canada right now in Surrey, BC. And I am usually an elementary school teacher and have been doing Genius Hour for a few years with my grade 5, 6, and 7 students. Right now I'm on leave and I'm teaching teachers, but normally you would find me in 5, 6, or 7.
Hugh?
I also teach in Surrey. Last couple of years I've been teaching grade 6 and 7 students. We'll be probably moving to 5, 6 next year. I've been doing Genius Hour for 3 years now.
Joy?
Hi, I'm Joy. I'm from the Chicagoland area, in the same district as Paul, and I've only just finished my 2nd full year of Genius Hour, and it's thanks to Gallit and Denise and Hugh for just catching my eye on Twitter one day. Thank you.
We got Louise.
I'm Louise Morgan. I'm a 2nd grade teacher in Fort Worth, Texas, and I've been dabbling with Genius Hour for the last 2 years. Thanks to Joy and Gallit and Hugh and everybody else that tweets about it. So, good.
Paul?
I'm Paul Solarz. I'm a 5th grade teacher in Arlington Heights, Illinois with Joy. I've been doing what I call passion time for the last 2 full years and part of a 3rd. Joy's the one who got me connected with the Genius Hour group. So thank you, Joy, and thank you to all you guys also for sharing everything.
And last but not least, Robyn, with a Y.
Yes, with a Y. Hi, I'm Robyn, and I'm also in Surrey, BC, and I traditionally teach grade 3, taught 3, 4, 4, 5. I had the blessing of being able to teach some of my students for 3 years, so I really got to see how a Genius Hour transformed their learning and thinking over the last couple of years, and now I'm heading back to 3rd grade for next year.
All right. Well, I'm so excited that we're all here, and I think where I wanted to start was just finding out from a few of you how you got started, made the transition from just teaching as you did to actually practicing Genius Hour in your classes. I know that you guys are all a little bit responsible for, bringing other people into the fold, but maybe Gallit or Joy, somebody who sort of came upon Genius Hour early on?
For me, it came to me at the perfect time. Hugh was teaching down the hall from me, and he pointed at a tweet that Denise Krebs had tweeted out about trying this new thing in our classrooms, and it came at the perfect time because I think Hugh and I know for me, I hate to speak for you as well, Hugh, but I think it was for both of us. We were at a time where our pedagogy was shifting, like our vision for what learning should look like and what teaching needed to be. We were in the middle of this like big change, the both of us, and we were re-looking at everything and re-examining our practice, and our pedagogical visions were we were changing. We were, growing in that area. And so when we heard about Genius Hour, it just really fit in perfectly to what we wanted to be doing in our classrooms and what we thought was really important. So it came at the perfect time because it was at the same time as we were rethinking what does teaching look like and how do I go to a more student-centered classroom versus a pupil-centered.
Hugh, since she name-checked you, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it was initially a tweet. I'm totally thrown off by people taking pictures. It was initially a tweet from Angela Myers, who had basically shared a blog post that Daniel Pink had shared, and it was about a bank, I believe in Washington State, whose manager had given their employees basically an hour of time each week to sort of creatively think and just try to be giving them time essentially to think about things that they could do differently or things that the bank could do differently to help the business. And then Angela questioned, why couldn't we do this in education? And then Denise goes, well, why couldn't we? And I followed the lead of Denise, to be honest. She did a lot of early work with it, and I remember she had basically been done for a couple weeks, and then I started jumping in with some of her stuff and sharing it with my students, and it sort of jumped from there. And when we had the first day, I remember pointing out to Gallit that I was able to just leave and then have everybody just sort of come look and see that all my students who had been a challenging group were basically focused on their own questions and their own passions and their own wonders. And it was pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Joy? I know that you said you came in a little bit later. You've been doing it for about 2 years. What was your experience like?
The year before that, I went to a workshop with Hugh McDonald. He's from Scotland, and he does the design thinking. And he said to us, what's an issue you have in your school? And let's work on that today. So my issue, I had just gotten back into the classroom. I was an itinerant for a while. I was reading specialist for a while. So I had my own classroom now, and we were doing those quarterly book projects where you had to read one book a quarter, and you had to do something about it. So, I don't know, one quarter they had to make a CD and put songs on it, and it had to be related to this plot, and I just hated it. I said, this is not authentic, and like Gallit said, things were changing, the pedagogy was changing, and we needed to go more authentic, and so I said, that's my issue. And so I just came up with, we're going to read, and then we're going to share what we read. And that's how it started. So then people started reading out things that weren't in books. They started reading blog posts or articles, and then they started sharing what they learned. And then it was about the same time, like the same month or the month after that, when I saw that Genius Hour hashtag, and that's what they were talking about with Gallit and Denise and Hugh, and I was like, oh my gosh, let's just call it this. Let's have this name. And then I found out about Angela Myers, and I found out about owning your genius, and it grew from there, obviously. But I knew I had to change something, and it had to change right now because I was sick of it. And the kids, they would read, but maybe they didn't read, and they'd still get A's on their projects, and I was sick of the grading. It was more work for me and less work for them, and it needed to be way more authentic. And just reading what you want to read, that's what readers do. We read what we want to read, and we share the good stuff. And I just wanted it to be, what do people do in life? How do people learn in life? And it grew from there. So I'm just so glad that it could morph, and the kids morphed with me. They were a little upset at first because there were no rubrics, and what do you mean? What am I going to do now? And your good kids who were good at getting A's, they had a real hard time with it. But the other ones were like, okay, I'm going to read this magazine, and it was great. It was a little chaotic and messy, but that's okay.
Right. Well, did anybody else have trouble with kids, in being really excited about Genius Hour or Passion Time, presenting it to the kids, and then encountering resistance? Any surprises there? Paul, Robyn, Louise?
You know, my kids, they were really receptive to it. I think the last year, my second year into it, the way I introduced it was not a way I would suggest to anyone. I kind of told them what the year prior looked like, and I kind of said it's all of this, and it was like an hour lecture, which is like the antithesis of what Passion Time should be about. And by the end of it, they were so upset that I just spent an hour boring them to death that they didn't want to do it. And I go, okay. And they came right out and told me, it was the first week of school, but they said, whatever you do, don't do that again next year, because it just kind of ruined it. So I said, thank you for the honesty. I'm glad we've got this good relationship in the first week of school. And so I'm thinking about how to introduce it this year a little bit better. But that was it. They've all been receptive to it. They've been pretty much enjoying it from day one, and with that slight exception.
Okay, so practice what you preach. Robyn, Louise?
For me, when I started with the students in grade 3, so I've done it for 3 years, I started with the concept of who am I and what is it that I'm passionate about. So we spent the first term, because the students are only 8, nobody had ever asked them before. Nobody said, what is it you care about? What are you passionate about? What matters to you? And so we started that. Everybody did the same project around the same thinking idea, but they all presented it in a different way, so that was really personalized as well. You know, what are your family values? What do you care about? And then from there we moved into individualized small group projects of their choosing.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And Louise, what about you?
I kind of started mine a little differently. My kids are second graders, and a lot of them don't know what they're interested in. And I really just wanted them to be able to explore freely without having to be told how to do it. And so a lot of them have never painted at home. They've never used Play-Doh at home. They don't really come from homes that really nurture a lot of creativity and things and imagination and all of that. So I had to get them to the point where they would know how to do that. And so the first time we had Genius Hour, I put out a lot of materials, and I just had them just explore it. Some of them never had used Connects before. So it was really interesting to see how they kind of sort of tentatively went to all of these things, and especially the Connects, because they looked at this box of all these little strange pieces, and they were like, what in the world are these? And they didn't, and so they started figuring out how they kind of go together. But my whole thing was just to kind of get their juices flowing. You know, I didn't say, you know, you have to come up with a project, you're going to present this. I just wanted them to explore and find out what they really liked to do and what their passion was. And that's how I kind of started each year, and then we kind of grow it from there.
Did they take that and run with it, or did they struggle?
Yeah, I had a Connects group. So the group that there was about 4 or 5 of them that really gravitated to those Connects. And so they started figuring out how to do things. And then they said, can we look at pictures of some other things that you can make with Connects? So they Googled it, and they found a little car. And so it was kind of cool. And, you know, if I was trying to make them do this as a group project and separate them into little, you know, give them jobs, like you're going to be this person, you're going to be this person, it would have not been nearly as successful. But because I just let them go, they just kind of, the leader rose to the top, the runner, you know, the guy that ran back and forth and looked at the computer and said, you need 4 blues and you need 5 reds, you know, it all just kind of worked out. It was really cool to see that collaboration going on. And I didn't even, it wasn't manufactured by me at all. It was their doing. And that was the beauty to me, to see these kids working together and then every week getting excited about it. And so then they would take their project and they would display it in the room. And so when people would come in the room, they could show it to them, and then they could look at it all week, and they could think, hey, next week, you know, how are we going to change it next week, or what are we going to do differently next week? So it's just kind of something that they kind of would keep going with. And the same with the Legos, or, you know, just different things that we had going on in the room.
I was wondering, on behalf of everyone watching, you know, whether you guys adhere to 1 hour or is it 2 hours? How much time do you actually allow kids to work on their projects, or how long do you do Genius Hour for?
For me, it was
about an hour.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was always a dedicated time, and I was very methodical about my time. I personally chose not a Monday or a Friday because We missed too many Mondays and Fridays, and there was severe backlash if we had to miss Genius Hour. So it was, yeah, revolt, I tell you. I chose Wednesday because I was really working on the whole thing of building inquiry and wonder and curiosity in the classroom. And so we had Wonder Wednesday, and everything on Wednesday, not that the other days weren't wonderful as well, but that was our real big inquiry day. So we always did it Wednesday afternoon. The whole afternoon was given to them for that.
Wow. Anybody else have something to share on that front?
I'll go. Ours is the first day of the week, and so we don't say Monday, but it's the first day of the week, whatever first day that is, and that's dedicated as well. That backlash is harsh. And we have 80-minute periods, I do at least, so I take the first 20 minutes to talk about what we need to talk about, this is what we're going to do today, and this is who's going to share or who wants to share or whatnot, and then they have the full hour after that. It has to be dedicated or you won't do it.
Got it. Well, can you go into that a little bit deeper? Like, walk us through a typical Genius Hour session. Just, you know.
You just let them go. No. By the end of the year, you just let them go. But first, we got to start off with, okay, this is what we're going to be doing today. A lot of times we'll show videos, you know, some inspirational videos, and what did you think of that? Our kids know about the Genius Habitudes, the ones that Angela Myers talks about in Classroom Habitudes. We talk about what habitudes did you show this weekend, or what habitudes does this person in this picture book show? You know, we've got a little bit of intro to it, and we've got a lot of sharing. You've got to make sure that the kids share what they're doing. Otherwise, their motivation goes down.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the big things for me this year was, in order for my kids to be I sort of felt I didn't know what was going on at times, and so we built in reflection time, and they would always be writing at the end on their blogs. They would always have a Genius Hour reflection time, because I felt like I really needed to check in with every group, but I didn't always have time during the Genius Hour time to do that. So and then while at home, I could sit down and read through their blog posts and see where they were as a check-in mechanism.
Does everybody have time built in for reflection? How do you guys handle the reflection piece? Because I know that a lot of us think it's extremely important to actually digest what's going on.
I have my kids, oh, sorry, did I cut you off, Hugh? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I jump in after you.
All right. I have my kids kind of do it at the end as well, but one of the big things is I'm trying to teach my kids, and I think we're all trying to do this anyways, to be metacognitive in their thinking, so that along the way they're in a way reflecting on the process as they go. But I do a formal reflection at the end, so my kids have to create a blog entry with a video that just shows what they learned or what they created. It can look a million different ways, but they fill out the KWHLAQ chart that I got from Languages, the blog, so you can check that out, Sylvia Tolosano. And we also do a written reflection, a full, paragraph style, where you say, what did you learn, or what was difficult, or what was challenging, that kind of thing. We do that at the end, but we have 6 to 7 rounds of Passion Time or Genius Hour a year, so it's almost so recursive that that it seems like it's within the process. It doesn't feel like it's at the end, so we do it that way.
And Hugh, you wanted to say something about that?
Yeah, I do the same thing. I have my students propose on the blog itself, and then the kids go in and they practice using feedback and give feedback to the students when they're providing their proposals. And so that gives that time for the students to sort of adapt if they need to adapt and answer any questions that people are challenging them on. Most of my students at the end do the same thing as Paul, where they do a reflection and they have to produce something at the end. I'm toying with the idea of having sort of breaks in between, where we have like gallery walks. I haven't done that as much, where students can just, you're partway through a project, okay, 3 weeks, we're 3 weeks in or something, and then just half the group go look at what the other half is doing, and then vice versa, and be able to ask questions and then do the same sort of thing and challenge. Are you staying to what you were planning on doing? Has it taken you somewhere different? Yeah, that's basically what I do.
I love what Hugh just said, because I think it's so important to like constantly reflect on the process ourselves and how Genius Hour is going with our kids. And there's no there's no rules that you have to stick to, and that this is the way it needs to be all the time. And we need to constantly, as teachers, we need to constantly think about how is it working out with this group of students, reflect, reassess, how can we make it better, right? So, similar to Hugh, I was feeling also like, I need a little bit more. I want more sharing here, right? And I had my students blog as well. And then I went to visit Robyn's classroom, and I saw her blogging questions up on an anchor chart, and I thought, wow, like that's just so much better than how I was doing it, right? And I don't think I had the kids properly. Just the reflections, I don't think were the same quality as the ones Robyn was doing with her class, because she had that built-in time for reflection, which is so important. And she was reflecting on the process and going, okay, how can I make this better for my kids based on, their discussion that she felt like she wasn't really sure what was going on, right? So I think that built-in time is super important, right? John Dewey said that years and years ago, that reflection without that time for it is meaningless, right? So build in that time, and for us to do that as well, to constantly think about how can we make this better for our students. So I love that Hugh's like thinking about switching it up with a gallery walk and all that. That's genius.
Just to go back to the time. That was funny. Just to go back to the time thing. Initially, it started out for an hour with me, but with my students' feedback, it was they were basically complaining that it was not enough time. And then we initially went, like Gallit and I decided that, okay, we're going to do 4 weeks, and then on the 5th week they're going to present, or 3rd week, and then they're going to present on the 4th week. What we discovered was some were done after 2 weeks, and some were not even close to being finished after 4. And then it became wrestling, because then they would then try to shove everything together to try to present. And it was, some of it, the 2-week kids were fine, it was great, and then the other the kids who were trying to present after their entire project after 4 weeks, when they needed probably maybe 8 weeks or 12 weeks, they were not very good, frankly. And so, we basically looked at it ourselves and questioned, okay, are we giving them enough time during the class time? And we also questioned, do we need to have a set deadline for each student, or can a student propose a deadline? And I moved towards that last year. Okay.
Hey, Hugh, I had a similar challenge as you. That first year that I was doing it, we presented. I had some people come in, and the presentations were not quite up to standards, and it was our first go around. So I mean, that's fine. It would have been a learning experience. But what we decided to do, and I kind of like it, although I like your idea of proposed deadlines, is I have a hard deadline. They need to finish by the hard deadline, but they can finish anytime earlier. And so for me, that's a 6-week process, 2 periods a week for 6 weeks. And their blog has to be posted online with their video. So when we share, my kids, they plug in their headphones. This sounds very very non-personal, but they plug in their headphones and they check out the videos that they want to. I assign everybody at least one, though, so that everybody gets at least one person to view their video. And I taught them how to, the compliments are part of our writing program, so they're very good at giving compliments. But then I taught them how to give quality boosters, which would be like, ways that you can give suggestions without hurting feelings or making you look more important than somebody else. And we do that, though, a full round after the last one. So this first round, we won't do that until after the second round. We'll do that for the first round of videos. And that seemed to work well, because I can get to almost every kid by that next 6 weeks, give them some feedback, give them some help posting their blog or whatever, and that's worked pretty well for me. So just a thought, but I do like your idea of the proposed deadlines as well.
What happens if you look at a kid and their project or their idea, what they're working on, is quite obviously going to take them past 6 weeks? Do you have them still present a video and then let them continue? Has that happened with you?
I don't. I approve everybody's essential question or guiding question at the beginning. So if it looks like it's going to take them longer than the 6 weeks, I'll try to trim it down with them. Obviously, I've never been proposed something that would be, you know, spectacular that I want them to go 2 rounds with. But I think I would be happy to, you know, to see what that might look like. If somebody really had some idea that might take 2 rounds, I think I'd be very open to trying that. But I haven't had that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I found that I did the rolling presentations as well, and as I was meeting with students, and sometimes what they thought was going to be a longer project, they felt that they had got as much out of it as they could, and so that they were ready to work on their presentation. A lot of them, I mean, I let them fail. I think that was a really big part of my Genius Hour, is some kids thought they were going to do these things, and I let them discover that, you know, they can't do that. It wasn't going to work. And so then there was a lot of learning around what is reasonable, what can I accomplish, what can I do. But they presented on their failure. And they presented on exactly everything that went wrong and why didn't it work and what did they learn. That was the key part of what did they learn by their project not going well. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times in education today, or even as parents, we don't let our kids fail enough. And a lot of my strongest projects came out of the kids that didn't really accomplish anything.
Right. Yeah, as long as there's boundaries on that.
Well, and with my kids, because they're the youngest learners, they're very fickle. You know, they get all gung ho and they want to get started on something, but then they discover how difficult it is, or how that it doesn't work the way that they thought it was going to work, and so they get discouraged and then they don't want to keep working on it. And so keeping that stamina up so they can continue to work on it and follow through with it and keep them accountable is also something that, you know, is hard, and it's hard on them, and it's also hard on me too, because it's just, you got to keep on them. And then you have others that just want to stay with the same thing. They just want to keep on going with it, which is good. But then, you know, it's like we can move on now. So I'm learning a lot here. And you know, every year it gets better, and there's always really good ideas. I think reflection is definitely something that I'm going to be adding in as we go, and making it more of a, not just as an add-on in my classroom as it has been. It's just been kind of an extra, and the kids get excited when they know we're going to do it. We didn't do it every week, but actually carving out time and making it a priority in our classroom, I think, is definitely something I want to try to do from the get-go at this next school year.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of failure, which in our back channel we've discussed that it's not really failure if you, you know, are discovering and learning from your mistakes, then it's hard. It's just a learning experience. But what have you learned while doing this? Were there certain challenges that you didn't anticipate, you were really surprised by, and how did you get through them? Anybody have horror stories that became romantic comedies? I don't know.
Can I have one? Can I do one?
Yeah.
I had a parent that called Genius Hour crazy in January of last year. She said, this is crazy and you need to do more PR on it. So I said, okay. And this was on my 40th birthday, no less. Anyway, I will always remember that. And you know how Angela Meyer says, like, passion hurts, and it hurts and it pushes you further, and she definitely pushed me further. So that's why I created the live binder, because I wanted people to see why we do this. Why do we do this? So that was my thing. You've got to be proactive with the parents. I had someone on Twitter today, Nancy from Texas. She says, talk about the parents. You've got to be proactive with the parents. You've got to let them know what you're doing and why you're doing it. That's one big thing. So don't forget about the parents in this whole thing. I'll let everybody else talk about issues with the kids, because we know there are plenty of them.
All right, who wants this? Who wants the conch?
I agree about the parents. I think that I'm not sure if it's because we're in Canada. We have a little bit more control over how we teach and when and what we teach. So when I said to my parents and my students, you know, this is what I want to do, they trusted me. I don't think there was one of them that, you know, called me crazy or was wondering what the heck it was that I was up to. That being said, I've worked in the school for a long time, so I have history there as well. So I think that I had a trust with the community in which I was working. If I was going to a new school, I think I'd have to do quite a bit more PR on that in order to prepare the community for that kind of learning, because it's not everywhere and it's not always like that.
I think where I failed with parents is, and I had the same situation as Robyn, where I didn't have anybody challenge it. And that was partly due to the neighborhood I was working in with very agreeable parents. And like Robyn said, being at the school for a while, there's trust there, right? But one of the things I didn't do, which I wish I had done more, and I will going forward, is I didn't get them involved at all either. I had no pushback from them, but I also I've never invited them in to join us during Genius Hour, and I've heard a few other educators talk about that on Twitter now, and I'm all excited about that, and I want to make sure that going forward I take that into more consideration, like bringing in the community, bringing in parents, bringing in grandparents, whoever's available to come in during Genius Hour and help out and mentor, but also afterwards to kind of celebrate what we've done. That's where I feel like I failed in regards to a lack of communication with the parents. So that's a goal for me going forward.
It's where you've learned.
Exactly. And thank goodness for all the wonderful teachers that share on the Genius Hour hashtag, because I've learned that from them, from other people doing it in their classes, saying, you know, I thought about it, I did it, or what if, and so that was a fantastic
Jackie Gerstein shared a really good story about her. She had a special needs kid, and he was just having a really hard time with Genius Hour and with, you know, with all of the, I guess, the non-structure of it, you know, part of it. And so she actually involved his mother, and his mother actually came in and actually helped him and kind of got him to, because, you know, she just felt like she needed to be involved. And so that was kind of something that helped this kid be successful with it. And that was important to Jackie and also the parent as well, so that he could participate and be part of it as well.
One of the things I really appreciate about the Genius Hour movement and all the teachers that I've ever talked to about Genius Hour is you do what's right for you and for your students. Yeah. So what I do isn't what Louise does, isn't what Joy does, but we all do what we do. We have the same, you know, sort of end goal, but we make it work for what works for us and our students. And this year, I had a bunch of students that really did struggle with Genius Hour, and I really struggled with them struggling because I'd had so much success with it before. And so I involved one of my support teachers, and we had a little bit more guided Genius Hour for them, just because they were really having trouble with the freedom and being accountable for their time. So their second go-round was a lot more successful than their first go-round, and I was really proud of them and the learning that happened in that second stage.
I mean, what did that structure look like by, you know, when you're taking away some of the freedom that was actually constricting? What did you do?
Well, because they struggled with the what to do and what to do next idea, they were all given, I had applied for a grant and got some big kits of Kinects, the robotics Kinects. And so they all worked on a project with the robotics Kinects, and then they taught the other kids in the class. They were the only ones that got the robotics Kinects, were these students, and they were actually in a small group setting out of the classroom with direct support from somebody. One of my support teachers during that time, so she sort of guided them through the thinking and all their questioning, because they really struggled with that.
I mean, I would love to hear a little bit about, well, actually, does anybody want to say any more on that?
Well, I think, can you hear me?
Yep.
Joy and I were chatting on Twitter recently, and I don't know if it was a Genius Hour chat, and Joy was frustrated because one of her students was not responding or getting into it as well as the other students. And and I've noticed that with some of my students too. Some of them are just kind of not as enthusiastic as others. And I think when you start thinking about your school, like who do you work with? You have the teachers that get there early and stay there late and are doing all kinds of innovative things. And then you have the teachers that are there to do their job. And so I think that's kind of like you have to think about your students that way too. They're not all just going to embrace this and just think it's the the coolest thing that they've ever done. Some are just going to do what they've got to do to make the teacher happy. And unfortunately, that's kind of the way it goes. But I think that's what we all have to kind of think about too. Hopefully there'll be some motivation there. They just haven't found their passion, or they don't want to find their passion. I don't know, but hopefully we can nurture that along. But
we're not giving up, Louise.
Never.
No, I was going to say that's exactly why we need to be doing this, right? We're not giving up. That's why we need Genius Hour to get out of that box, and learn how to do things because they love them and not just play school and please the teacher, right? And the kids who don't know their passions, it's I think it's wonderful for them to at least have some time where they can figure out what they're interested in anyway, and realize that maybe something is going to be a passion for them, and maybe it's not, and then knowing that it's not is good too, right?
Right. Yeah.
And when we did have that issue, Louise, a lot of us met in a Google Hangout on June 9th this year, and it was great. There was a lot of us that were like, what do we do? And the more we talked about it, the more we realized these kids come from so many different backgrounds, and there are so many things going on in their lives too, and we have to consider that. And we came up with another great resource I'll share on Twitter and on this thing. But it's just, what do you do with resistant students? We're just going to keep plugging at it because that's our passion. And we share it with each other, and when we share it with each other like this, that's when things come to life.
Right.
Yeah, I would.
Oh no, go ahead, Hugh.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say that one of the best platforms is be able to have conversations about it, because we all have unique experiences and different things work in our surroundings and our settings. We can all take something, if it's not everything, but something from each and every one of us to then adapt and use in your own classroom. It just makes it that much better, the experience that much better in your classroom. Like, just to take away the difficult students angle, the one big thing that I found is if I'm not doing it, or if I'm not at least modeling in some way my own sort of inquiry learning process, if I find the buy-in very difficult. And so, especially for students who are challenging students, I remember somebody asking me, well, what are you doing? And then I'm going, well, that's a good question. And so then, a couple weeks later, I am sharing a video that I had put through, and then a post that I had written. And it's something that I think we need to value more. Like, we can have such a huge impact on them, and we need to show them that we value this a lot by not just talking about it, but doing about it, I guess, as well.
You got to walk the walk, right?
I think one of the biggest things, the most valuable things that we can teach our students is that we're learners as well. And so whenever I go somewhere or do something, the kids are all, well, what did you learn? What did you learn when you went there? And they want me to share that with them. So rather than me as the teacher, I think it's more valuable for the students to see me as the learner.
Right. All right, well, I'm going to jump in with a question that I know we've discussed here in the office a lot. We know that you've encountered resistance, which has been surprising when you give kids freedom, but we also know that, you've experienced extreme backlash when Genius Hour is cut short, and there have been kids that have really embraced this hour. We want to hear kind of some of the success stories or some of the projects that have come out of this that have just blown your mind, or something like that.
I'll tell you about one of my resistance students at the very beginning last year. He was that ended up being a very positive. He had trouble. He didn't know what to come up with, and it bothered him greatly. And he was in tears actually that first day that we were working on trying to come up with a topic. And I left my class with an assistant and took a walk with him around the school. And I tried to talk to him. What are some of your interests? I didn't know him all that well yet. And I couldn't get much out of him. He just was too emotional. So I said, all right, we are stopping by your 4th grade teacher's classroom, and we're going to ask her what she thinks you should do for your Passion Time project. And he's like, okay, but I don't think it's, he was still doom and gloom. So I walked in there, I interrupted her class. I said, can you tell me really quickly just one thing that you think that my buddy here could possibly do for a Passion Time project over the next 6 weeks? And she's like, oh, real simple. He loves GoAnimate. Why doesn't he teach people how to use GoAnimate as a tool in the classroom? He can make a video, showing how he uses it and everything. He overheard this conversation, and he was screaming, yes, 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 and he ran down the hall back to the room, and from that moment on, he was the most passionate student during Passion Time for the entire year. Never had another trouble coming up with an idea, always had some of the most creative ideas from then on. He made a 40-minute video on acting skills. Like, nobody's going to sit through 40 minutes, but he's an actor, so he learned all about, or he taught us all about acting skills. He made a sequel to the Star Wars series that used actual stuff from the previous episodes, to make predictions. It was amazing. So, that's a great story, I think.
I love that. It's so important for kids to see that there are adults who believe in them, right? So to visit a previous teacher, that's so wonderful. I love that.
Yeah, I owe her for that.
Yeah, a lot. Just to jump in a little bit here. Just to sort of piggyback on what Paul is saying. A lot of times students don't realize that what their passion is actually it matters to us, so to speak. A lot of times they think they need permission to be able to do something. And like I've had countless students who will start one project, and it's quite obvious that it's not something that they're interested in. And then you ask them something that, well, what do you do when you're at home? And they go, when nobody's looking and all this, and they, oh, well, I sometimes write, or I like to play video games. Well, why don't you do something like that? Why don't you write a book? Why don't you, create a video game of some sort? Or even I remember somebody saying music. Well, they created this whole beatbox, I want to, background beat, and he had the kids just like captivated, and they were coming up to him afterwards and asking all sorts of questions about how it works, how did you do this, and it was just like this empowering moment where you can have experts in the room, and it doesn't necessarily need to be me. It can be a peer, somebody who you never really usually talk to, all of a sudden is this expert on something, and they want to talk to them about it. And that's what Paul discovered there, is the exact same thing. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know Joy was involved in this too, but I think one of the most powerful moments came for two of my former students came this year when they actually got to share what they thought of Genius Hour and what they learned from Genius Hour with CNN. And that was so powerful for them that, somebody who wrote in newspapers was interested in what they thought about Genius Hour. And if anything, I think that Genius Hour empowers learners, and it really gives them a voice and choice, and the only way that we can make any shifts in education is to start honoring the voice and choice of our students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Does anybody else have any favorite stories that they want to share? We're coming up on a little under 15 minutes, so I'll give you a chance.
Just to kind of go off what Robyn said there too, when Hugh and I were team teaching last year, we had a couple students who wanted to reenact the Honk for Happiness campaign that had been done by someone down in the States, and they had seen the video and were inspired by it and wanted to do some kind of happiness campaign in our neighborhood as well. And Hugh can probably tell a story a little better than me, but he he tweeted about it, and then same thing, the media saw the tweet and came into the classroom, interviewed the girls, took some pictures, and they were in the paper, right? And so they're doing this project they're passionate about, which is making other people happy, which is a beautiful topic, right? And yeah, they're so empowered because, again, there's other grown-ups there and seeing it and sharing it with the world, saying this is important enough for us to put in the newspaper, right? It was huge.
Yeah, Gallit got it right. I shared the video saying, oh, students have proposed to do a project inspired by this. And then he sent a note back going, oh, I would love to see what the project is. And I go, they haven't actually even started yet. And so, and literally it was probably about 2.5 months later that the kids were ready and to then show the reporter what they had done, and they invited him to the event. You never seen two girls light up more than saying that somebody is interested in what I'm doing for a project at school. And I had a student this year or one of those two students actually come back and ask, can we do it again? And obviously we had some trouble up here with strikes and stuff like that sort of cut that off, but we had a plan to do it, and so anyways, we're hoping that she will come back and do it again and want to do it again.
I hope you share that with us too, so we can share it out.
That might have brightened those strikes up a little bit if she would have done it during the strike.
And can I jump in here too?
Yeah.
There are some little projects that we get all excited about, but my excitement throughout the year, it's not the kids getting the shoes to try out. It's not the little free library. It's not even the newspaper. It's talking to the kids and really getting to know them really well. Like these one-on-one conferences you have with the kids during this time, I think that's more important than what they produce or what they've gone through, their process. It's getting to know them and making your class the rest of the week just stellar. You know, it just seems like the rest of the week rocks because you really know these kids. What turns them on, what turns them off, you know, where they're going in life, and you sort of become like a mentor. I know with last year's kids, when they got to 8th grade, I was able to talk to them more instead of just trying to figure out their name, you know, trying to remember their name. I was able to talk to them and know who they were and where they were going, and it was, I think that connection might be more valuable than the process or the product. It's just letting them know that you think they are important enough to take away this time in your class and give it to them, you know. I think that's might be more important than the projects.
Well put.
Wow. Yeah, I want to go hallelujah, so I'm going to go hallelujah. Yeah, I think that, you know, I've talked to so many educators, and it's sort of like we talk about all these nuts and bolts, and really great nuts and bolts, but I'm really thankful to you, Joy, for bringing that up, because that's what you know, I hear over and over again, that it's kids realizing that that we actually care about who they are, what they care about, and see them as actual, like, living, breathing, sentient humans, you know? So.
And like the passion that Paul shared when he was talking about his kid, that 4th grader or 5th grader, you know, and that passion, that's what drives us too, is their passions drive us, and they make us better, and they make us want to be better. And you see this group in front of you here, and I would love to teach with all of them because they are so passionate about their kids and learning, and that's really what it's all about.
Joy!
I'll mute my microphone now for a while.
Well, I mean, I could talk to you guys forever. I really love this group, and I knew before we even met that you guys just have crazy energy, passion, and you have like created this community around Genius Hour and around your practice that I think is so inspiring. Since we only have about 8 minutes left, I would love to hear kind of where you guys are going with this, what you hope the next year looks like after the summer's over. You know, what are the new challenges, and if you have any suggestions for people who are thinking about dabbling in this.
All right, I'll go and then I'll be done. I want to get more mentors and more community members in. I'm really bad about that. I think I had one mentor for my writers. I had about 9 writers this year, and that was great, but that's the most I've done. And I need to get more mentors and then more community members in helping the kids with their projects. That's my goal for next year. Just step it up a notch. And then after that, I'll go with let's make a real difference in our community, because I'm not there quite yet. You know, I'm still with what do you love and what excites you, but I need to go a step further after that too.
That's great. Gallit?
Well, like Joy said, definitely bringing in the community more. That's something that I want to make a I want to focus on that. For the next year, I'm going to be teaching teachers again here at SFU. So my other little goal right now is actually to try this with my adult learners and see how Genius Hour goes over at the university level. So I'm going to try and implement that this year while I'm still teaching here in the teacher ed program, and then eventually down the road when I'm back in elementary school, definitely it's going to be bringing in the community.
Wow, that's a great goal. All right, who's next? Everyone has to go. This is like New Year's, except on July 24th, 2014. Who's next?
Well,
I'll go. Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Louise.
Okay. Well, I'm also very involved with the Global Classroom Project, and Robyn has also been involved, and she actually has a Genius Hour global project on our site. And so, you know, just kind of marrying all of that, you know, and trying to you know, get the global awareness, get the Genius Hour, you get all of this stuff, but I think that it all can work together and should work together, and I think it's just kind of working from the very start and just making that your culture in your classroom. This is how our classroom runs, this is what we do, this is how we think, this is how we reflect, and so everything that we do is kind of based on how we run our projects and how we do Genius Hour. And so perhaps on another day when we're not doing Genius Hour, we still bring that reflection thing in, and we still kind of use some of those same skills that we're getting and gaining from Genius Hour. That's kind of where I want to see my classroom going with it.
Love it. All right.
I'm going to get a whole new set of learners this year, and so I'm going to have to work really hard. But I guess my main goal is always to build that culture of curiosity and wonder in my classroom. Wonder about everything we do, being curious, inquiry-based. Genius Hour just fits really nicely into all of that, constantly asking questions, and I do that as the teacher as well. We're involved in a lot of global projects, like Louise said, and I do have the Global Genius Hour project. .wikispaces.com that there's over 60 educators on that site right now sharing what their students do. It's a place where people can go and see what other classes are doing in Genius Hour, and it keeps growing every year, and I'm really excited about that. So seeing more teachers take the risk and just go for it. I mean, if it doesn't work, then figure out what you just need to change or tweak to get it to work within your classroom as well.
I guess I'll go now. I had some of the same ideas as some of the others. One of mine was to bring more community members in. Another was to implement more ongoing learning check-ins, meaning not necessarily one big final presentation, but like a gallery walk, like partway through, where there's checks and balances as you go through the project. And also the final one is trying to involve the parent community in I'm moving schools within our district, and try to involve the parent community more than I have in the past with the students' projects.
That's great. And who's left? Who didn't go?
Me.
Paul.
My turn. All right.
Better be good. Better be good.
One bad thing about going last is I want to just say what he said, what she said, you know, pretty much on the list. Honestly, the big thing for me is, you know, kids are they're practicing the skills that I want them to use in life during Passion Time. It's not a graded time for me. It's not something that I'm going around and assessing their skills. What I'm trying to do is get them to practice, get them to lead the show on their own without much support from me, and then I'm just going around giving feedback. So I'm trying to identify this year how much that spills over into the rest of the day, because over the last 2 years I've noticed my class, really take charge and really be able to lead the day. And by the end of the year, it's to the point where they don't need a teacher. They really could do it on their own. And I think that a lot of it has to do with setting up that Genius Hour time, that passion time. I think they're getting so used to they know that they know the most about their topic compared to me. They're not going to come to me for many ideas on their topic. They're going to go to the internet and their friends and then themselves. So they get used to that concept of being independent. And I know that's going to spill over. Also, I'm increasing the time this year if it remains possible, just because I want to try to improve the reflections and improve the final product a little bit. I was very proud of my kids. I have no regrets, and I love what they're producing. I just think we can get even a little bit more deeper if I give them the time. I think time's always that essential element. So that's what I'm looking at.
All right, that sounds great. I'm really excited for your kids and for you guys. And we are now at the end of our chat time. So I guess let's just say goodbye to those who tuned in. And if you have other questions, just please add them to the chat page, and we'll try to answer them offline. We'll see. I think that you guys are great.
What did that say?
Lee, show it again with your microphone on while you're talking.
Said he was awesome.
Next Genius Hour chat on Twitter. It's always the first Thursday of the month.
Hold it. Delete. Hold it there, and we'll get a picture of it. Hold it.
Yeah.
Hold it up.
Wait.
Okay, hold on.
No, I think
Hold on.
If I have to talk,
you might have to talk.
Yeah. So there you go. I'm talking. Next chat is going to be September 4th, Thursday, September 4th.
There we go.
All right. If you're new to Genius Hour, go and lurk, and then suck all this wisdom out of these people who are so willing to share. You better send me some pictures. All right. Oh my gosh, it's going crazy.
Thanks, everybody.
The paparazzi. All right, bye.
Thank you for being part of this.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's stop this broadcast now.